The Trimui Smart Pro has to be one of my favorite retro handhelds because of its comfortable design and easy to use OS. So I was quite excited when Trimui released a new update not too long ago called CrossMix OS, which would improve it even more. And if you also own a Trimui Smart Pro or are considering to buy one, you might be wondering, what does the update do and is it worth upgrading? It's MAIDeSITE. To be clear, we will only check out CrossMix OS, but if you need a full review about the Trimui Smart Pro, just click right here or subscribe to check it out later. Also, for this video, I'm using the pre-installed CrossMix OS, but if you want to save some money and upgrade your Trimui Smart Pro to CrossMix OS yourself, check out the GitHub link in the video description, which will explain how to do it step by step. When you first boot up CrossMix OS, it will take some time to set up everything. So just give it some time to finish and load up. Once booted up, you will see this screen. That includes the following at the top: a favorite tab for your favorite games, a recent tab to quickly resume your last played games, a best tab with a couple of collection games and vertical shooters. Then you get your emulators with some cool artwork. Then you get your old and new apps. Then you get NetPlay, and lastly you get your settings, which still contains a lot of options. But let's go over some new features, apps and emulators, and then check out some gameplay footage. To start, it has built-in scraping, so you can easily download all your box art, which is a fantastic new feature, because it can be a hassle if you want to add box art without this built-in feature. You can now also hide systems that don't have any ROMs or games in them, which cleans up your list quite nicely. You also get Portmaster, which is a program designed for Linux-based handheld devices that organizes and simplifies the installation process for hundreds of PC ports, which is a pretty cool new feature for the Trimui Smart Pro. You can also record your screen in case you want to, and you now get a random game picker if you're overwhelmed by all the games and you can't choose what to play. Furthermore, from the system tools, you can enable auto load states to resume games from your last save state, which is very convenient. And there are more things you can adjust here, like overlays and much more. You also get over-the-air updating, so you don't have to manually update your Trimui Smart Pro, which makes updating a lot more convenient. And Trimui also added some emulators like Nintendo 64, Dreamcast and more. This means some Nintendo 64 games that didn't boot on the stock OS now actually boot, and some even perform better. And there are a lot more changes which you can check out at your own pace on the GitHub page. By the way, I will leave a link for that in the video description. So here are some gameplay clips of a couple of consoles so you can see how they perform. Starting off with some low-end emulation gaming on the original Nintendo, which by the way might be the first console I ever owned. Playing games like Mega Man 2 or any other NES game at all works like a charm. So if you're into these games or want some piece of Nintendo nostalgia, you should be good. The same goes for Genesis games. They also work without any issue. Personally, I didn't play Genesis games a lot when growing up, as I didn't own one myself. I did, however, play them sometimes when visiting my family, so it's pretty cool that I'm able to try out some of these games on the Trimui Smart Pro. The Super Nintendo was and still is an amazing console. It has a lot of gems and also some less familiar games that are quite fun, like this game, which is called X-Men Mutant Apocalypse. You can play with several X-Men like Wolverine, Cyclops, Gambit and more on different types of levels. It's definitely worth trying, I would say. CPS 3 also runs like a charm. As you can see, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike works excellent. I did, however, had some small issues getting some moves out, but maybe that's just my lack of skills in this game. As for me, Third Strike is one of the coolest but also most difficult Street Fighter game to master, but maybe you won't have any issues with getting these moves out. Marvel vs. Capcom on MAME also runs great. Same thing here, had some small issues landing some moves, but the game itself runs just perfectly fine. It's such a cool game with tons of characters you can play, so you can definitely sink some hours into this game on the Trimui Smart Pro. PlayStation 1 games like Crash Bandicoot also run perfectly fine. That's amazing for me because I remember playing this as a kid was mind-blowing. Definitely worth trying out PlayStation 1 games on this handheld if you get the chance to do so. As mentioned, Nintendo 64 games seem to run a bit better on CrossMix OS, which is pretty nice, and Mario Kart 64 or almost any Mario Kart game at all never gets old. It's always great to pick up and play them alone or with friends, but there are much more gems you can play on the Trimui Smart Pro, like Mario 64 and some Zelda games. But just check out how smooth this game performs. PSP games, on the other hand, do have some issues, as you can see here. Ridge Racer doesn't run good at all and it's barely playable. So if you want to play PSP games on this handheld, just know you might experience some issues like these, where the game just doesn't run smooth and you can experience some sound issues. But it's not on all PSP games. For example, Burnout Legends does seem to run a bit smoother than Ridge Racer. Just know that not all PSP games will run equally good. Then we get the Sega Dreamcast, which also has to be one of my all-time favorite consoles. It has so many great arcade games on it that never get old, like Crazy Taxi. It runs fairly good with the occasional frame drop or sound crackling, but overall it's playable on the Trimui Smart Pro. So I'm definitely going to put some more gaming hours into this console. Another game that I really like is Virtua Tennis. I believe this one and part 2 are the best tennis games ever. Maybe not too realistic, but definitely a lot of fun. And if you would say to me as a kid, you can one day play this game on a retro handheld, I would probably not believe it. But yet, here we are. Then we get Dead or Alive 2, which might be one of the most graphically impressive games on the Sega Dreamcast. And most of the time is a hit or miss on retro handhelds. On the Trimui Smart Pro it runs decent, but it did experience the occasional frame drops and sound crackling. But I have to say it's still playable. And by the way, I love this tag team mode on this game, which I believe more fighting games should have. So here's one more game I want to show you, which is from the vertical games list, from the best tab I showed you earlier, which is 1945K. I really like that you can play these games on vertical mode, so you can get the most out of the screen, and that is something I don't see a lot on any retro handheld. It's definitely a feature I would like to see on more handhelds going forward. Overall, the Trimui Smart Pro was already an excellent handheld due to its design and user-friendly OS. And with this new CrossMix OS, it got even better, with features like scraping, over-the-air update, port master and much more. So if you want to buy the Trimui Smart Pro, you can get it for $70 or $100 with CrossMix OS pre-installed with the link in the description. And don't forget to leave a like for support and subscribe for more content, or click here to watch the full Trimui Smart Pro review. See you there!